Triforce of Wisdom, Link. The evil wizard Ganon has the Triforce of Power. Whoever gets both Triforces will rule this land forever. You must help me, Link.
Hey, for you, Zelda, anything.
Hero.
Hey! Excuse me, princess.
Hello and welcome to the Realms of Hyrule podcast. As always, I am Caden Cottenius. Joining me this week on all things RoH and Zelda are my cohorts, comrades, and colleagues. First, the masterful artist Mana.
Nay.
Secondly, the bomb bag finder, eventually, Nay.
Hello.
And last but not least, the owner and administrator of RoH, Jack Archer.
How's it going?
It's going great. Now that we got introductions out of the way, I have a couple announcements to get to. I would like to state that if anyone out there listening is interested in becoming an assessor for flashbacks, or a trainer for newbies, or possibly both, please send a PM to Mana. There's 2 announcements currently up now in regards to each one if you need any more details, but she would be much appreciative for anyone willing to sign up. Think of it as a way of giving back to the site. Has anyone signed up yet, Mana?
Actually, I have Aspen for assessor, and Levy is going to be trying to be a RP trainer when she comes back.
All right. Now that's some names I would like to have around. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
If you would like to join either one, like I said, just send her a PM. She'd be more than happy to have you. And another thing to note on the announcements, if you don't know already, we are a part of a little site called Top RP Sites. Basically, it's all the major RP forums and whatnot together. Members vote for what is the most popular. Pretty good place. And for the last couple of months, we have been running this vote and reward system where, depending on where we place among the top sites on the site, we give out awards in a raffle. For now, it's going to be a raffle. We might change it up a little bit in the future. We haven't decided. I'll keep you noted. All right. Announcements are out of the way. Now on to Kiroku.
Yes.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Like you, I have been here for a rather long time. Almost too long, really, if you think about it. 11 years.
It's coming in on that, yeah.
It's already gone. We're almost at 11 and a half years now.
Are we really?
Mm-hmm.
Man, I'm getting old.
We're going to discuss more this RoH, maybe a little bit of RoH 5. First, let's talk about why RoH 5 didn't last too long.
I think part of it had to do with, at least with the community. We tried a different setting with 5. We tried to use the Twilight Princess setting.
Mm-hmm.
And while I think the setting and the history that we wrote up for it was really good and interesting, there just wasn't the draw for people because it had been quite some time after Twilight Princess had come out, and it wasn't as well received at that time as I think it is now. But also, I think that the reason why it eventually failed and went completely kaput was because we lost everything. The database or something may have been hacked, and we just lost all the content we had, and it just wasn't something we could repair. Right,
and after RoH 5 went, it wasn't as big of a draw, and at that point, there wasn't a lot of people left from the 4th edition of RoH, even though it started off strong. We were down to a very small membership level, if I remember correctly, yeah?
Yeah. Dude, I think we were only at about 15 people, total, including the people who were relatively inactive.
Right. When you include that and the fact that somebody came by and just hacked us and got rid of it, it's understandable now in hindsight why we kind of took a year off before RoH 6 started.
Yep.
And what kind of brought back RoH 6?
I'd actually, because before RoH 6 started, I didn't actually own the intellectual property rights to Realms of Hyrule. there was another guy that had been on RoH.
Dark Prophet Raven?
Yes. And he offered me the ability to start or restart another Zelda site that he'd used that had formerly been an affiliate of ours. Man, what was that?
Wasn't it Legends of Hyrule? Or was that the site that...
Yeah, it was Legends of Hyrule.
Okay.
Yeah. Which was supposed to be more combat-oriented and war-focused. At least that was the previous versions of it were than RoH, whereas RoH has always been much more focused on the creative writing bent. And I'd actually written up the history that we would eventually use for RoH for that site and had been working on it with Satsuriku for a few weeks when Shin, the Archon, got in touch with me and said that he was actually looking into restarting it. RoH, I mean. So from there, I transferred all of the ideas that I had from Legends of Hyrule over to what would become 6, and we started hammering out the details for what we wanted to do to set the site up better. And that included using a post-Ocarina of Time setting, because at the time it was the most popular Zelda game. It had been on the most consoles, and therefore it had the most people who would have played it and have been familiar with the setting. And we kind of just went from there.
You said you didn't own the intellectual property of RoH at the time. Was Ryu? He was still the owner technically at one point, was he not?
He sold the rights to Thanatos in RoH 4, I believe. And he had it through 5, or it may have been at the end of 4, as Rio was losing interest and had more and more real-life commitments that he had to deal with and keep his focus on. One of the interesting things about RoH is how frequently those property rights have actually transferred over time.
Yeah, I would know a lot. I know the person. A lot of people might know him as a speedrunner, the Silent Assassin TSA. Now, no longer goes by that name. I think he goes by Mike, if he's even on Zelda sites anymore. He created it. He owned it through, I want to say, part the way through the second one.
Yeah.
He owned it through then, and it went to Rio. I always mispronounce his name. Jer, as I call him. He owned it until about 3, which became his cousin's Cass, who owned it up until 4, which there was a little incident. We won't get into that now. Jer owned it again. I forgot Thanatos owned it at one point.
Yeah. I think there was a period after 3 where the only owner was... I think it was Jared. Was it Jared's little brother? It got really convoluted in there for a little while.
I know he was an administrator. He might have even been an owner. I'm not too sure. It passed around a lot in that family. I know that much.
Yeah, it did. I ended up with the rights after there was a falling out between Aaron and I purchased the rights when he was removed from the council in order to just facilitate things going smoothly from that point forward.
I wasn't part of the council. Can you go into detail a bit? What was going on at that point? Like, why was he removed?
On 4, there had been some issues with the high post count members, what was perceived as abuse by a lot of the lower post count members of mechanics and things that just didn't seem very right. And there was an argument between the rest of the council at the time and Aaron about, I think it was a ticket or something, and it ended up being a silly argument that Aaron later apologized for and actually said that he needed the time away. And I couldn't be more grateful that he actually did come back when we asked him to, because we have benefited quite a bit for the work that he's put into the site. He does almost all of the back-end work aside from the programming, which Satsuriku does.
Oh yeah, I think all of us can agree that Thanatos puts a lot of effort and time into this site.
Oh yeah, and it's not nearly as apparent as the rest of the staff because of the work that he does and because he's not usually in the chat.
Right. And it doesn't help a lot that he's on the other side of the pond, as they would say.
Oh, true.
All right, as far as we're still kind of on early parts of RoH, who is your original character?
My first character was actually Jack Archer on this RoH.
And he has kind of been retired and came back several times, yes?
Yeah, I think he's been retired 3 times since I've been on the boards. So,
how many of those was because of the Sheikah limit?
I don't because of the time limit.
Yeah,
I think one of them was because of the time limit. Something that Mana and Nay might not know is that like the battle system isn't something that is something that we've had in most of the other ROHs. So
I heard about that actually, that the battle system hasn't been like it's something new. I thought maybe in 4 or 5 there was something akin to one. Was there?
No, we had one in ROH 1. It was much more simplistic than what we have now, and I think it actually carried over to 2 as well briefly. But after that, my understanding is that I think they tried one on 3 that didn't really go anywhere, but 4 and 5 outright did not have battle systems. And the downside was basically what happened with Aaron is when somebody could get that, there wasn't a quantifiable way to say this person is this strong with this specific post count. There was just this understanding that somebody who had more post counts than you was a stronger character, which, I mean, obviously can get wonky depending on like what kind of a character they are or what they do, or like there's a wide variety of things that could just make it really confusing. So if you weren't talking a lot to the people that you were role-playing with, you could wind up with misunderstandings and arguments that the battle system pretty much puts to rest, which was actually one of the big reasons why I wanted to do a battle system with this ROH, because it would just get rid of that issue entirely, and on top of that, it would give us, the staff, I should say, a way to mediate in-character arguments where people can't agree on what's going to go down in a conflict, which we've only actually even had once in the entire history of this ROH. Generally, this ROH, we've been, I think, pretty good about being conscientious of the other players that we have.
I would agree. Part of that probably comes from the fact that a lot of us talk more than we did in previous ROHs. I can attest that me and you, for example, didn't talk much about what we were going to do and what was going to be blown up.
Very true.
And this one, which is kind of, it's really nice, is we talk about it and we know where a story is going. No one is playing with enforced method acting, as one would say. We all kind of know the script, which is, it's kind of a nice thing, but at the same time, I do kind of miss the spontaneous insanity a little bit of the older ROHs. Would you say that, as far as some of your other characters go, you kind of miss some of them?
Yeah, the 2 that I miss the most are the characters that I had involved with Great Bay Gerudo pirates. Spiridon is probably my favorite character that I've made on ROH. I wasn't really too keen at the time on getting into the main storyline, and I wanted to challenge myself to only do solo RP for a while. And I got through, I think it was 75 on my own before I think I just started burning out on it, because I was posting like three times a day on him, trying to move his personal story along. And the character I like a lot. He's just difficult to write.
What was his character like? What was the basic idea of this character?
He was one of the captains in the pirate fleet. He was somebody who'd been taken after a raid and raised with the Gerudo. Had a somewhat abusive relationship with Gerudo house that he was raised in, and they eventually granted him some of the the magical stuff that they were using. My idea for it was to try and tie into the iron knuckle stuff they had in Ocarina of Time, where they put a person inside the armor and like they powered it. And it was going to eventually be the slow process of him turning into an iron knuckle from the possession of a Poe that the Gerudo put on him. At one point, his disobedience, I think, ended up with him killing his wife and daughter. So just as a character, I found him really interesting and at the time really easy to RP. But it wound up being so dark that it was kind of difficult to get into after a while.
Do you think you'd be able to bring him back? Or is it still that darkness that you don't really want to deal with, or what?
I actually brought him back briefly last year in January. I think it was January when the Kakariko event happened. And I was going to have him work with Drake and try and make him be a better person. But that was right before, like right as they got into a conversation about how that would move forward, the player of Drake had to take a hiatus from the site. So I retired Spiridon again and brought Jack back for Princess Protection Party RP that we did for quite a few months.
Yeah, which actually kind of worked out in your favor.
In the long run, yeah.
Yeah, in the long run. Yeah, all four of us are involved in it right now.
Yep.
So, yeah, I'm kind of glad you brought Jack back. Now, you mentioned earlier that you have had a couple of brief periods of inactivity due to either personal or otherwise. As the owner of the site, has that affected the council much? Has there been things the council may have done or hasn't done in the past that, as an owner that came back, you weren't too happy with?
For the most part, no. The times when I was gone, things generally wound up okay. The area where I had issues pretty consistently was with the battle system. There was a general understanding of things across most of the staff, but there wasn't an understanding of the purpose for design mechanics for a lot of things. The consistency across ideas that would be lost when I was gone, and then changes would be made to things like the addition of new races without balancing, or changing skills without like an announcement or something like that, or the addition of items or modification of items that just kind of seemed nonsensical and out there. And I don't think it was anything that was ever like malicious, but
it wasn't as you envisioned, I would say.
Yeah,
okay.
And like honestly, the biggest reason for most of my hiatuses was actually had to do with battle system design, and it's actually why I eventually closed down development on it completely, because the arguments that would be had over specific battle system mechanics would get so ugly and so draining that I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So I'd have to leave for a month or 2 months and leave either the head scribes or the admin and the head scribe, depending on the time period, in charge of things. I did make sure during those periods that my contact information was available, and usually when I came back, it was because some issue had come up and I needed to come sort something out.
And I mean, I've been around long enough to know that, yeah, you've had some hiatus. I have too. I can't say I've been here the whole time, but you do come back, and usually when you come back, you're right back in the thick of things. And I would say the site's actually a lot better with you steering the ship.
I think when the site does best is when at least one of the administrators is really active, and I think it really is the same when Aaron is around, or is the sole voice that's guiding things. He has a lot of really good ideas, and for the most part, at this point, we actually agree on most things. And it's not how it used to be. There used to be quite a few arguments. Generally, as far as a vision for the site goes, we're pretty much in agreement. So as long as one of us is active and around, there generally isn't much of a problem with things.
And the same thing goes for the scribes. I believe all of us would say, we all generally have the same idea and purpose, and we're all kind of going in the same direction, which is a lot better overall. Things do a lot better this way, and it's certainly more than I can say about some previous RoHs.
Oh, yeah. Just in general, like, we've been a lot more picky with staff. We've been a lot more picky with a lot of ideas this RoH. We really, really focused on making sure that the council is hands-off with regards to the RP, aside from like ticket approvals, as far as making sure that the scribes that we pick share the same mindset as the rest of the council and are not combative or argumentative has really helped, I think, because at least in the past year and a half, things have been really good and pretty calm. I've been much more happy with this RoH as far as like arguments and stuff go than I have with either 1 or 2 or 4 or 5, where I was a scribe or a head scribe on all of those ones.
Oh yeah, the Lord of Shadow Merrick fights of 2004 are not ones. They are best left forgotten.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure about 3 people would get that joke, but I don't care. Any more questions from Mana? Nay, y'all have anything for our administrator and owner and glorious leader?
Oh God.
Well, I heard in the interim between Row 5 and this incarnation of Row that there were a couple attempts at different like RPs. Like I think I heard about a Star Wars RP that might have happened but didn't, or was maybe in the beginning stages.
That may have been one of the ones that was attempted. Probably sadly the most successful one that I think we had. We did a Pokemon role play.
I do not remember Pokemon. The Star
I would have
one,
joined that one.
The Star Wars ones I know a little bit about. I know it was Rio's idea. I want to say he started it as early as RoH 4. Like,
it may have been a side project of his then, now that I think about it.
Yeah, and there was a website up. He had the URL and everything, and it was, I can't even remember the name of it. But I don't think we ever got anywhere far on it. But it was an idea that came about, and it stood up for years, but no one ever touched it. I know there was a Dragon Age one between 5 and 6.
I remember. I think was that Aaron's idea?
I think it was, and I think there was we got as far as a forum up for it, but it kind of died off. As far as not this circle of people and ones we know about, there was another Zelda site that was kind of based on, or came from people that was from RoH, and that was Hyrule Fallen. If you've ever read Dear Chronic, I've mentioned it a couple of times, or if you've been in chat, you've probably heard a couple of things about it. There were a couple of people. There were some of them were decent RPers. They made a lot of characters. They're kind of the reason why we have character limits now, because I'm pretty sure Will can attest to this, but I think one of them had like 20 characters at one point.
I don't think it was quite that many.
It was a ridiculous amount. But Hyrule Fallen was one that it actually stuck around for several years. I think they've finally gone inactive, but that was one that kind of stuck around. I was on it. I have to admit, I was there for like a week. But as far as any other from us, I really don't remember the Pokemon one. Whose idea was that?
That was mine. I actually ran that one for probably 2 months. We had a forum up. There was probably half a dozen of us that were doing things on it.
Why did you never invite me?
I think it was something that I'd posted briefly in the RoH Facebook. Because I remember, I specifically remember Juan and Aaron being on that site, but I don't think we ever got more than 6 people, and it started going, but we just never really built up any steam. We never really got it. We got the boards going and stuff, but we never got like any kind of decent graphics up for like forum skins or anything like that. So it just kind of fizzled out.
Well, that makes sense. Like I said, after 5, there was a very small core group of people.
Oh yeah.
And getting anything together, it just wasn't working. And part of the reason 6 worked, at the very beginning at least, is that there was a lot of talk of it on the Facebook page.
Oh yeah.
And I want to say what was left of RoH 4 was still up, and people were starting to go back into that Flash chat, which we had here for forever and a day. From there, Aaron got back on board, you got back on board, Jer got back on board, and everyone started talking, and before you knew it, we were back. It's weird to think about, for me at least, that it's almost been 4 years since then.
Yeah. That for me is really surprising because this started right about when I graduated from college. And it's kind of mind-boggling that not only that we've lasted that long, but just the fact that it's been that long that we've been around. Because I have been amazed with both the stories and the people that come out of the site. It's had its slow periods, but it's never stopped completely. There's only been a few really small moments where we ever thought about starting the next version of RoH.
Yeah, and hopefully that next version is a long time from now. And 2 of the people in this call right now are new people. How do y'all feel about RoH from a new person's perspective?
I don't know. It's a good community because honestly, I've been on so many RP sites. I've made I even know a lot of admins from other sites, but this one has a better community, in my opinion. We all know each other. We all usually get along. I'm not going to say all the time. But it has more story plot. It's just a lot more appealing all the way around. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been here for 2 years. I usually run away after 6 months. So it has something to it that keeps people around, in my opinion.
I'm pretty sure for me and Will and some of the older people, we've been through those times where old sites just didn't work, and we kind of know now what does and what doesn't work, and we're a little older. We're not teenagers running a site, doing whatever the hell we want. I'm sure that has some positives to it. Nay, as the newest person here, well, what's your opinions?
I joined the site, I wasn't looking for an RP site at the time. I was just kind of on, I think, TV Tropes. I was just browsing there, and I kind of ended up clicking on it, and wow, it really impressed me. At the time, it wasn't the Termina Moon on the banner page. It was this big menacing Ganondorf face. And I scrolled down and I saw flashbacks, and I thought that was the thing that actually drew me in the most. Initially, I thought, I can make a short story, get it I don't know if peer-reviewed is the right word because it's not professional, but it's nice to have people read your short story and provide some comments, feedback. And so I decided to try out the website as soon as I finished exams. I joined in April, and I was waiting for my exams to finish just so I could sign up. So I did that. Then I started hanging out in chat, and I really stayed because of the people. I met Obs in chat. Yeah, I met Mana in chat. Zane, I met in chat. At the time, I didn't really know Caden and Kiroku as well.
That's a heck of a way to start. And speaking of the flashbacks, it's rather interesting because that is actually one of the new additions to this RoH. It's kind of funny because the person that commented and suggested that, I don't even think stayed around, 2 months, Will?
I don't even think it was that. I think she got maybe 5 posts in. She had the absolutely fantastic idea for doing flashbacks, and we hooked it up with the experience system that we have with it now, and threw it out there. She loved it, and then left. So
her work was done.
Yeah, small name, big impact.
Yep.
It's kind of weird how affects things. Someone that's been here forever, it's nice just to see how much we've expanded and everything we've added. I mean, I can remember times before travel threads and tickets. And you darn kids have it lucky. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes, old man.
I do have to agree with the two of them, though, about the community. Because, what brought me back during 4, and then repeatedly since then, is the community. And I think that is far and away the strongest aspect of RoH, is the community that we have here is really cool. And I mean, it's relatively tight knit if you're in the chat, but even the people that just do hang out and do the tavern games and loosely RP with, it's never something that seems like it's a burden or really feel all that negative, aside from the ridiculous battle system arguments.
Oh yeah.
But that's the nice thing about this. For me, being on numerous other RP sites, you don't get this kind of community when it's a huge one. Oaku's a great one. They have 15,000 members. You don't get this kind of relationship that you can bond and develop new storylines with a community that's this close-knit, and you just have a good atmosphere.
Speaking as someone that's only been on RoH, I would hate to be on one with a lot of people because I don't think I can handle it. I mean, half the fun is just sticking around and, as I say, shooting the shit in chat.
Even if it is close-knit, we do get our newbies come in, and once they come into chat, they get to see, yes, the weirdness that happens, but we still welcome them with open arms, and it does get weird.
Yeah.
There's moments I want to kill everybody in there, but it's just a fun place to be, honestly, and I have never seen a community like this, and I can say that clearly, because if I pull off the top of my head, I've been on 11 sites in the past 3 years.
Wow.
I think the continuity of the community also has a lot to do with things, because you and I and Satsuriku have been around for 11 years now, and I mean, there's people that have been around for 5 and 6. So there's always there's always been a small group of friends to serve as a nucleus, I guess, for new groups to form around.
Oh, definitely.
So there's always a group of people that you'd be able to talk to and be familiar with, even if you only really hung out or talk with one person in chat a whole bunch. Which I do think the chat really does play a huge deal in the community, because I think the best times that we've had is when we've had something on the site so that everybody could come in and just hang out and talk. It also helps, the chat helps especially, I think, with getting new people integrated into things. Not only do they get to meet people and join the community, but they also get to, I guess, fast-tracked how to do tickets or character sheets, how flashbacks work, finding new people to RP with. And I think that would be difficult to have as intimate as an environment as we have if we didn't have the open chats that we have.
Definitely. And as someone that's been here forever, I remember the times before chat, and it wasn't quite as fun. Far more formal, I would say. Thinking of an RoH without a chat, that's pretty much RoH 1 for about the first 10 months. Not good memories. Some good, not all. I'm still a little upset about those blown up guild houses, Will. You owe me a little bit.
It was a different time.
It was a very different time. All right, and let's go on to the more minor RPs. We talked a little bit of the major ones last week. Vanguard, The Call, Sword Return. We talked about that last week, but he's back. He is currently in Clocktown, I believe. I think he was, last I know, he was looking for an RP partner. I think he's got one. But if you want to RP with someone that is very talented and you would really enjoy working with, I would go there. Speaking of Clockdown, I think there's still something going on in the distillery.
I haven't been RPing in the distillery, but I have seen, like, in the past couple weeks, a good several characters enter and leave. Like, it's become a little hub of activity in Clocktown. There was, let's see, it started with Gemini, played by Shadow Girl, bringing in Skylar, who had been freed from her bond to Yeveren, and kind of hiding out there, running into Obsidian Dragon's new character, Mordecai, a blood magic wizrobe.
With horns.
And with horns.
Can't forget that.
There was Dagon, the bard. Who else was there?
Murahad was there for a little while.
Murahad was there for a little while. There are 2 Deku in there now. It started with Basil being in there, one of the newer Deku characters. And there's another new Deku character, Miu, who just entered that tavern as well. And I believe that is also where Prince Soren has gone now. So it's just a hub of activity in Clocktown at the moment.
And in essence, it's what a tavern should be.
Until Skylar snuck out a window to escape from Gemini for some reason.
Yeah, I think she's still having a little bit of after effects of being exorcised recently.
Post-traumatic exorcism disorder.
Yes, good callback to last week.
Also in Clocktown, there is my new character, Billy Thurkon, the Wizrobe bounty hunter, has teamed up with 2 wanted people, Cyrene, who he doesn't actually know is wanted, and Deathwalker, who he found out was wanted when they were at Snowhead, but has kind of reluctantly teamed up with in the efforts to hunt down some slavers who are operating in the Clockdown slums. That's one of the smaller sort of plot lines in the site. I've also know about, I think it's Kakariko Gorge. There is Aphrodisias, Reika, and Akiziel. They are planning on breaking into the palace, the Castle City Palace dungeons to free a military NPC. And yeah, that's going to be interesting. Some Kazites are going to meet them there. I believe Kieran is going to be there, as well as Rawia.
Maybe if I start posting as Murahad again, I might be there. I'm not sure.
That would make it 3v3.
That would work.
Mana is involved in also some small plot line, I know, with 2 Stalfos and the Stalfos whispering Sheikah.
That is so not a storyline. It's just random shit. Really? I admit that.
Well, it's more than nothing.
True, but they're just running around a desert. That's not really news.
I've been through a desert with 2 Stalfos with strange names. Doesn't quite ring as the old song, but I guess aside from that, we can talk a little bit about some of the more current going-ons out of character. Will, I think you had something to say about tagging.
Yeah, so there was a brief discussion about tags, more mature content. The rule of thumb that I think everybody should know is if you have a doubt about it, just tag it as mature. Either put it in a spoiler or tag a thread. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's not something like really actual sex or like really, really graphic violent descriptions, it's probably okay just to be in a spoiler or have a tag. As far as like the more lewd content, if there's anything touching anybody's genitals, you should probably just fade to black.
I think we can all be in agreement with that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that maybe people don't get is like because we try and cater to such a broad audience that we really do have to try and be conscientious of that, especially with people like with younger people and with people who read at work. Having those tags does a lot to make sure that people don't get in trouble. It's not something that we should overlook, and it's something we should try and be conscientious for with other members.
Mm-hmm. and his staff, we are always watching. So make sure you do it. Or else. Alright. Outside of that, there is a little bit of minor discussion point we wanted to bring up. Name pronunciation. As we are all well aware, we are doing a written RP site. Most names that come through here, you can have a pretty easy time pronouncing them. Caden, Jack, Nay, Lyra. Was that right?
Yep.
Let's see. I had to make sure. But, there are times when people have names that we're like, how does that get pronounced again? And it gets a little troublesome with this podcast because there are times where we're just not too sure. Have y'all had any, I know there's a topic about it, but it never gets used. But are there any names that y'all have problems pronouncing?
Oh God, I have so many.
Well, you start.
It makes me... No, thanks! Somebody else gets start, because I'm not showing how dumb I am.
Don't worry. There's plenty of audio evidence to show how dumb I sound, so...
I keep adding a non-existent R to Aphodius. I keep saying Aphrodisius.
Aphrodisius.
I don't know, some Aphronite, and I think that would be pretty cool, but... that R just keeps coming into my speech and my typing of the name.
So would you say that's a Freudian slip?
Huh.
Nay, how do you pronounce your Gerudo's name?
Okay. Well, it's pronounced Rawia. Like Rawia. It's an Arabic name.
Okay.
But you can pronounce it more easily as Rawia. That's the more conventional method of saying the name, I suppose.
For me, myself, as I said, there's a lot of evidence out there that says I have a hard time pronouncing names. I can't really say much more than that. I mean, I am also the same person that used to call it accordion of time instead of ocarina of time. True story. Someone said, so he's kind of like a miniature Weird Al. What? Accordion. It's ocarina, Cameron.
Well, you have something now you can sell. Make it a parody.
All right, Mana. We've embarrassed ourselves enough. Your turn.
Oh, fantastic. Well, there's so many names. Feed is a good one. We were talking about this last week off recording, but I always called him Fed. Fed. And then they had to actually ask about it, and it's like, oh, that's his name. I'm still going to call him Fed. Or Food.
How is it supposed to be pronounced?
It's Fide.
Or Fide. There we go. See? I already screwed up.
For some reason in my head, I've always pronounced it Fid.
Yeah. I always pronounce it Foot, so what do I know? What other names, Amanda? Continue to embarrass yourself.
Really? Come on. Well, even your own character, Murhad?
Oh, yeah. Murhad.
Yeah.
That's...
Whatever.
That's not how I would have thought to pronounce that one either.
No,
how would you pronounce it?
Murchad.
Murchid.
Yep.
Yeah, and I have to admit, even when I first saw it, I thought, well, that's Murchad. That's a weird name. Irish names are weird. I actually looked it up, and I heard pronunciations. It's Murahad.
See, I wouldn't see that. When you look at it, you look how it looks. You want to pronounce it that way, and that's the same thing for me.
We want to pronounce it phonetically.
One name that I have trouble with is Yeverin or Yeverin. I'm not really sure, how to pronounce the Y followed by the V.
I think it's...
I'm not sure about that either.
Yeverin? I don't know. We're going to get so many PMs. It's pronounced this way, damn it. And please send them, because if I know how to pronounce your name, I won't sound like a dumbass when I mispronounce it. And I'm sure they all feel the same way.
Yeah, you're the one that always comes up with nicknames for everybody anyway, so what does it matter?
Hey, those are just because I could pronounce the nicknames, Steve. I pronounced Mana right.
You did.
I feel like Sharky's characters always had really difficult to pronounce names.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure... Okay, no offense to her, but at the point when she first started, I thought she was just rolling her face across the keyboard for some of her names.
Yeah.
To be honest, though, I used to just throw letters out until I had something that kind of looked like a name, so I could understand it, but...
To get Zemo's name, I put it into a ninja name generator I found on the internet. I put in Zora Assassin, and I got Zemo Shika, and the last name was Kariariariko Roko Kiko, or something like that.
Wow.
And so I cut that into Zemo Aririke, and I'm like, okay, that's her name, because I couldn't think of a name for her. So that was fun.
That is a long-ass name. Holy crap.
Very. All right, we've embarrassed ourselves enough with this one. Let's move on. Something Zelda-related, since we do tend to talk a little Zelda talk on here. This kind of went under the radar a little bit, but if you didn't know, a couple weeks ago, there was a rumor going around that Netflix was starting a live-action show, which would essentially be a family-friendly Game of Thrones.
Nonsense.
I'm intrigued by it, mostly because I like the sort of political aspect of Game of Thrones, as well as, the other aspects of Game of Thrones.
It's a very weird combination, but one that I kind of do want to see happen, because it's like, that's a weird combination. I just have to see it.
The Zelda universe is very diverse in races, and there are a bunch of different tribes even within the races. So especially the humanoid tribes. There's the Sheikah tribe, which I'm not even certain if they're supposed to be a different race from the Hylians in the actual lore, or if they're just I thought they were just a distinct tribe of Hylians. But yeah, and I want to see some. Well, the Deku monarchy actually exists in Termina. There's not a Deku monarchy in Hyrule proper, so I'm not sure if there would appear in this Zelda Game of Thrones mashup, but I wouldn't mind seeing some Zora and Goron politics and just some interesting stuff like that.
I don't know. This can't go well. Honestly, anything I've ever seen, they just shouldn't touch things like this. Because you look at anything else that you really like, and they turn it into live action, does it succeed? Ever?
The very first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie wasn't too bad.
Have you watched it recently?
The teeth.
The one from the 80s?
Yeah.
No, I guess I haven't. I would probably take that back if I saw it recently.
We talked about this in chat recently. There was a live action adaptation that was terrible.
Dragon Ball?
It was the Dragon Ball. All of the Dragon Ball live action adaptations just come off terrible. I do think Mana has a point there, that it's just a little bit out there.
I don't know. It has so much room to fail, and it's no different when they did Avatar. That was horrible. How could you mess that up?
Well, that Avatar should not have even been made into a...
No.
This may be going off topic, but that was already in that medium, so it didn't need to redo that medium, but in a shorter duration of time. That just smushes everything together.
Yeah, but that's with anything I've noticed. When they take something like a book or anything, they can't adapt it properly. I'm really big into Sword of Truth series, so when people had the Legend of the Seeker, that was horrible. That was offensive to me. And I don't see Zelda being any better.
I think Nay may have a point. If they can do the political bent to it, I think it might be okay. But I think that there's going to be a serious issue getting Ganondorf right. If that's the route that they go. Capturing somebody like that's power in a live action format is either going to look hokey, or they're going to have to do it mostly off camera, because I mean you end up with something like the live action Dragon Ball Z, where he's just throwing this horrible CGI ball of light around, and whoever's playing Link is just swatting it back like it's a tennis ball. And if something like that happens, then obviously it's going to be a concern. But I think the Game of Thrones comparison can really only be made as far as the fact that it's another fantasy show that they want to do, because let's be honest, if they tried to do I don't think there's any way that Nintendo is going to go for a incest, hyper-violence, rape story. I don't see it happening.
Ooh, boy. 4 words.
Nintendo did run love hotels at one point.
Yes.
That's true.
4 words. Well, excuse me, princess.
Oh, that makes me want to die a little every time. It's so horrible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
at least the one thing with this Netflix thing, at least they actually are working with Nintendo. So they might have a bit of margin that they might succeed with it. So I'll give them that. I'm still going to end up watching it, no matter what.
I choose to be optimistic about it.
I can't. Oh, if it does happen and it sees the light of day, I'll probably be one of the people that watches it. I'm curious. I might hate it and hate myself, but I'll see it.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Any final thoughts on that?
I just want to see CGI Gorons.
That's all you care about. Just give me the Gorons.
Give me give me the Gorons.
I think I'm going to hold off judgment until they release a cast, and once they actually released a cast, maybe the writers, then we can start maybe making real opinions about it.
Regarding setting, though, I actually wouldn't mind if they set it in like the same sort of area RoH is set in, or, like between Ocarina of Time and Wind Waker, where the hero's spirit is kind of in limbo, so there wouldn't be a Link running around. But I don't think they would do that, which is unfortunate.
Probably not.
Like Link is
Link
the
is
poster
the-
boy of the series.
Why do you think I like Zelda?
Yeah, but I mean, it would make more sense if the silent protagonist did not have a speaking role in this TV show. That's what I'm kind of worried about. So I'd rather he was in his spirit limbo in that time period.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get there when we get there, maybe. But enough of that. We're going to end this podcast as we usually end all podcasts. Dramatic post readings. We got 2 of them coming up. Me and Nay are going to be reading. Nay, would you like to go first?
I can go first. I am reading one of Snow's posts. That is the Ice Mage Stalfos. He's not a new member, but he was playing Nakul in Livy's guild, the Caravan, for a while. And when the Caravan fell flat, he also made another new character. Forget the other character's name, but Snow is the Ice Stalfos. And this takes place with Luna, the Shiko, who whispers with Stalfoses, and Hawkeye, who is played by Obsidian Dragon. And yeah, I'll just get into I'm going to make it really dramatic for you.
Okay.
Snow stares at Hawkeye's rambling for a while, unsure of what to respond before shaking his head in amusement. The main focus was the search for the secrets buried under them, and quite literally at that, considering they were in the desert. He watched Luna's attempts to find anything through the lens after agreeing to his suggestion. For a while, it didn't seem like she found anything of interest, and was about to walk further when she finally spoke up, focusing on a spot where a pillar that stands straight up, leading to who knows what underneath the sands. He heard Hawkeye asking if the Stals could use the magical items which made Snow pause and think for a moment, before getting close to Luna to lean over her left shoulder and look at the lens, moving his mask to the right towards Luna, a gap big enough for the left side of his skull to peek through. "Let's see if we can. Oh, how peculiar," he exclaimed, after taking a glance to the lens at the spot. Apparently, the lens of truth revealed some ancient text by allusions around the pillars in one section, along with a platform buried underneath a few layers of sand in front of the pillar. Taking a step around Luna, he waddled towards the pillar itself and tapped his mask in thought before jumping forward to wrap his arms and legs around one section of the pillar, almost like hugging a tree in an odd fashion. It looks like hugging won't work. Any idea what the words mean? I'm thinking it might be a switch of sorts for them to be hidden like this. There also look like a platform in front of it as well, so that's got to be connected to it. Snow's question to his companions as he slowly slid down to the sandy ground, giving a humped sound before planting his gloved hands on the pillar once more, trying to see if there were any buttons he could press, but not being able to feel it made it difficult to do so.
Not bad. Not bad. Not bad at all. I am reading Aspen's post as Tobias. It is in the Lockhart Manor, and this was around the point that he was going to kidnap Briar. And to kind of get into the character itself, I'm going to try to read this with a Russian accent. Angry mutters came out of the brush just before a very irate Tobias burst from the hedges and stalked towards the front door of the large manor. In their hasty retreat, they had left their enemies behind on the roads of the West District, and beat feet back to the north. If he couldn't take the mare, he would just have to take something else, something precious to him, perhaps. He didn't bother checking the grounds before kicking the front door open and storming into the house. Enough with trying to be quiet and sneaky. That just wasn't the way of pirates. Pillaging and plundering, that's what they were good at. Tobias didn't wait for Gray as he stomped through the house, looking for something of interest. "Get all the ass paper you can find," he growled out, not looking to see if Gray was behind him. When they got through with the place, that mare was going to wish he really had just come quietly, and that his friends had never come for him. It would take ages to clean up the mess they were going to make, and any writing utensils you can find too. Paint would be good. The human pirate scaled the stairs and went up to the second floor, throwing doors open, not sure what he was looking for. It wasn't until he got to one of the glass doors in the hall that he found it. A feminine gasp of surprise greeted him when he kicked the door in, and his eyebrows shot up into his headband into surprise. "Well, well, what have we here?" he said softly, his surprise at seeing the odorish woman still in the house quickly fading. What's so funny? What's so funny? That was a totally legitimate, dramatic reading.
I don't know, the whole fact that Southern accent meets Russian accent.
I can only imagine how much y'all were laughing off microphone.
At least we were courteous and had the microphone off.
Oh boy. Alright, on that rather silly note, this will be the end of the podcast. As always, I'm Caden Cottenius, and speaking for everybody here, I say goodbye, good luck, and watch out for snakes.
Hey, paisanos, it's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show! With the Mario Brothers and plumbing's a game, we're not like the others who get all the fame. If your sink is in trouble, you can call us on the double. We're faster than the others, you'll be hooked on the brothers. Hooked on the brothers. Yo, you're in for a treat, so hang on to your seat. Get ready for adventure and remarkable feats. You'll meet cool